Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Halftime with K Bizzy. Today we have a very, very special episode for episode number 45 now. We're getting real close to the 1 year anniversary of the show. I can't even wrap my head around that, but we'll save that for another day. Today we have the quite literally iconic Anders. He doesn't really need much of an introduction, as if you're a professional Counter-Strike enjoyer, you know Anders. Everybody knows Anders. Are you kidding me? INHUMAN reactions. I mean, some of the most popular sound bites that Counter-Strike commentating has ever seen. Today we kind of touch base on his beginnings in Counter-Strike, when he would go to LAN cafes and go play 8 hours a night and go back home at 8 in the morning when he was finished at the LAN cafes. How we kind of started moving into casting, and you know, just the development of, you know, the talent that we see in Counter-Strike in regards to the pro players, the scene as a whole. Really, you know, we got to talk about a lot of cool stuff today, and you know, I'm very, very excited to have him on the podcast today. So thank you very much, Anders. I love you, dude. And thank you, everybody, for watching the episode. So much appreciated. If you guys aren't already aware, maybe you're new to the show, maybe you just didn't know or something, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube currently and you're maybe out and about, on your way to work, at the grocery store, who knows, whatever the case may be, you can click off the YouTube video and you can find us on Spotify, so you're not burning a hole through your pocket with your phone being too hot watching a YouTube video in your pocket. Besides that, we also have a merch shop as well. We're currently working on getting some new merch going. We still have some available from the first drop that we did a couple months ago. And, you know, it's been really cool to see the support there as well. So the link for that is in the description as well. I can't thank you guys enough for all of the support, whether it be watching the video, subscribing to the channel, buying merch. I mean, really means a lot, guys. Thank you very much. Anyways, we're going to get right into things. So you guys enjoy the episode. Hope you've had a good Friday morning so far and have a great weekend coming up. And we will catch you guys on the outro. Dude, like, I can't thank you enough for doing this. Like, I was working one night and my phone vibrated in my pocket and I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, it's Anders. Let's go. It was awesome, dude. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm trying to make a point in general of like trying to just like appear on things when people ask, you know, because like, I don't know, like it's interesting, you know, and it's like you speak to new people, you never know what's gonna happen. Like I think it's fun. And yeah, like, you know, so I try to make myself available in general. That's kind of one of my philosophies in this space. So
yeah,
we'll see.
It's appreciated, man, because like, you know, I'm not a very big creator at all. Like, I've only got a few hundred subs across all of my platforms. So, you know, for you to, you know, not even care about that and just be like, yeah, let's do it. Like, you were ready off the bat. Like, yeah. I love that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do
it. All right. So we'll get right into it. Are you kidding me? Welcome. I've been looking forward to this ever since we started talking. And, you know, this is just awesome because you're, you know, one of the most renowned, most iconic, you know, people to ever touch a microphone in terms of casting for Counter-Strike. So I think the people that are watching this when it comes out are going to be really surprised that this is happening. So thank you once again for that. I kind of like to talk about like the guest introduction to Counter-Strike. So what was that like for you? Like, how did Counter-Strike fall in your lap?
Damn. How did it fall in my lap? I think so. Back when I started playing Counter-Strike, it was really uncommon for people to have home PCs that could really run a lot of games. Like, there wasn't a lot of that. So people went to, like, you know, like we call them like network cafes, where people would go and sort of play video games somewhere, like LAN cafes. And I had done that once, and we were playing Diablo 1, and then some friends said, hey, listen, there's a place in Copenhagen, which at that point was like a 40-minute train ride for me to go there. And I'm trying to do the math real quick in my head. I would have been like 14-ish, I think, 14, 15, something like that, in 1999. Shit, the math might be wrong, but something like that. And basically, you know, we asked our parents that, can we go there? Can we jump on the train and play? And the idea is you would book we'd call it like a sort of like a night event. So you'd go there at midnight and then you'd stay to 8 in the morning. So from midnight to 8, that was, I don't know why, it cost like 100 krona, which is like $15 or something like that. And then so we would do that, 8 hours of playing, and they just got Counter-Strike, and we're talking about like a version that from memory, I don't even think all the binds you could even access from like a menu. A lot of them you had to access for like the console only. So you kind of had to know somebody. I remember somebody had like a piece of paper or some shit that was, people could like,
Wow.
uh, so it's like some super, super early version. And it was obviously completely insane, and like we had no idea what we were doing. But I distinctly remember like one, when you've been playing Counter-Strike for 8 hours, which we essentially just did in the beginning. Like I remember the train ride home at 8 in the morning. We were so tired, like we've been up, all day and all night. But I remember like the feeling of driving home on the train, and I'd close my eyes and I would just see like this, the crosshair for like some of the snipers or whatever. I'd be like, damn, this is like I really had this feeling of like I'm so wrapped up in this game already. So yeah, that was in 1999. And it'd probably be lying to say that I knew at that point that it was going to go to be everything that it was or whatever, but it was definitely like one of those moments where you play a game and you're like, holy hell, this is exciting. Like for some reason I'm invested in this, in a
Yeah.
way that you don't normally get with the other games, I guess. So yeah.
Like this game right here is special. This is different compared to a lot of other games right here.
Yeah, and it's possible. It's also like you look back and it's like a childhood thing, and like it's possible that it's colored through all of that stuff, right? But it definitely, I remember like it really took over. Like it took over the whole land center. Like I think that's the only thing people were playing really. Like every time we come back for obviously for years into the future, that was the only thing that people cared about. We play that, and then we'd switch between that and Diablo because it was like at some point obviously you do become annoyed at Counter Strike because you're like, oh, we lost too many games. Let's do something else. So that was like the big moment for us, was like switching between those games. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something I talk about this so many times with guests. Like, it's something about Counter Strike that like I'm only 25 years old, but every game I've ever played, I've been really attached to games. But Counter Strike, for some reason, just puts you in a chokehold and it never lets go. And I've been playing for 10 years now, and it's almost the only game that I ever play. And I don't know
Yeah.
why, but that game, it's such a simple game in terms of 5v5, plant the bomb or kill everybody, and the round resets, and you do it again until one person wins. And it's the most simple thing. There's so many more complex games, but Counter-Strike, the concept of it and the core gameplay of it is so simple, but it's so grasping. And I don't know why that is, but I love it. And I think a lot of other people love it too.
Yeah, like I think one of the beautiful things, like you could probably write this down in a design document if you wanted to make a game and say we're going to make a game where picking it up is easy and intuitive, but it's really deep when the deeper you go, the more depth there is to it. Like that's an easy thing to say out loud, but obviously doing it in practice is super super hard. It's something that game developers struggle with a lot, and I think for whatever reason, Counter like the easy thing about Counter Strike, it is just cops and robbers, right? So
Yeah.
everyone understands. It's like you don't even need to explain. It's like yeah, you've got weapons and there's an economy. Nobody cares. Like just you've guns. There's the good guys and the bad guys, and it doesn't really even matter that much. But it's just like that's it, super basic concept. But obviously, the deeper you go, the more you realize it becomes almost infinitely complex at one point, right? So I think there is something to it, like and the complexity. That's what rewards you for spending more time with the games. I think once you spend like what you invested the first like 50 hours into the game, like you feel like okay, I'm gonna keep going. So there's something to it.
Yeah, it's really amazing and really unique. This episode of Halftime with K Bizzy is brought to you in part by PriceEmpire.com. PriceEmpire.com is absolutely loaded with essential tools for any skin enthusiast. Whether it be their blog, their price comparison app, the trending deals, or your personal inventory tracker, I mean, Price Empire really has it all. PriceEmpire.com is trusted by more than 1 million users on Trustpilot to ensure everybody that it is a fair and legit website. PriceEmpire.com is linked in the description. Go step your skins game up today. Before we get into your career path, I kind of wanted to touch base on what it was that kind of made you, like, you said how you got, like, kind of obsessed with Counter-Strike when you first started playing it. I don't know from when, it came out in 1999. I don't know how long after is when the pro scene kind of developed. But whenever that did happen, like, what kind of drew you into, like, oh, there's a professional side of things, and kind of, that kind of got your interest? Because, I know that like when you started listening to the pro matches and watching the pro matches, I saw somewhere online that you were kind of like not really satisfied with how the casting was being done, and that kind of stood out to you. And I wanted to kind of touch
Yeah.
on that because that's obviously a very crucial point of you overall as a whole.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I would say I would probably. I'm not sure exactly when I really noticed that there was like people were playing competitively. Because the truth is in the beginning, people, this is going to be maybe hard to grasp, but like back then, there was no matchmaking system or anything like that. Obviously, you would just play on community servers. So like the place that I played in Copenhagen was a place called XPC, which is like there was a LAN center, and they had their own online server. So in theory, even if you were playing from home, you would just join the same community server over and over again. So you just get to know all the people there, right? You would just sort of like, oh, recognize different names and be like, this is that guy, he's really good. This is that guy, he's always, in a corner somewhere. Oh, you've got a dog, that's awesome.
I don't know why he's here. Why are you here right now? Hi, Anders.
Yay! I've got a it's a boxer as well.
Yes,
They
I
are
got two.
they are so crazy.
He's a
They
little
are
shithead.
they no question one of the craziest dog breeds, aren't they?
Oh, easily.
Yeah, it's funny.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I've got a pug, which is barely a dog,
Oh, I love those.
they are funny. No, so basically, you would just join the same server, right? And you would for just playing on the same server for months and months and months, you'd get a sense of who's best on the server right now. And what's interesting is if you join another community server, so like for instance, Yahoo had servers, and like something else called UB had servers, and there's a big sort of LAN center network in Copenhagen called Boomtown, and they had different servers around the place. And yeah, and it just kind of like it kept going like that, So playing on different servers basically put you against different oppositions, and sometimes you could be the best on your like local community server, but then you would join somewhere else and you realize, holy hell! Like initially we thought they were all cheating, like they must be cheating. There's no way. Like we're the
Oh,
best in like our little space, right? We join somewhere else and we run into other people, and these guys are suddenly really good. Like there's no way. And it took us like it was a really hard learning curve to figure out they weren't cheating. Like they just understood the game in a different way from we did. And then people obviously had clan tags. So some of those people, you start to notice, okay, this clan is just all good people, and there probably were a lot of cheating clans too, but some of them just were really good. And then some of those guys kept ramping up and eventually became, especially in Denmark, like for the local scene, like just kind of legends. Like these, something like SOA, like Spirit of Amiga. For my money, a team like Titan that Sonic played on. I actually think I played Sonic once in like an online tournament when he was, I think, not on Titan but on another team, and they crushed us on a map called Survivor, which is like a snow map. But we were really happy to have played that. So slowly but surely, we played in these online tournaments, right? We signed up, and that's a really fun experience. Like if people haven't done it, it is really fun to schedule matches with opponents in the future, and you sort of like you say, okay, Friday night we're gonna be playing. You get ready on the maps. It's like there's a different process from just clicking the matchmaking button and finding a game with your friends. Like it is actually, I think it's worth going through it and kind of showing up prepared. And your level of preparation could be all over the place, but we tried, and it was really fun. So, and then we went to LANs, right? We went to LANs to compete, and this is like in, I don't know, 2004 or something. So somewhat early on, and that I think once you're in that deep, it's really hard to let go of, because it is like a fun and exciting thing. So yeah, like that already then I was well aware of the pro scene, and had a couple of friends that were better at the game essentially than I was, and kind of went on to play in bigger teams and all the rest of it. And there's like in some sense, this is maybe one of the sad parts about the game, is that there's such a deep history here that is maybe at the danger of never be really being told, because I like the kind of people you would have to find. I mean, it's amazing that we have people like Sonic around, and there are other people who have been around for a long time, like people like Thorin or Vendetta are people that have an almost insane encyclopedic knowledge of teams nobody's ever heard of, like except for the people that happen to be around. Like there's a very I've tried to have this conversation with Vendetta, and he knows like 100 million teams that no one's ever heard of, basically.
okay.
And it's interesting, and again, I don't know if anyone would ever want to tell these stories, but I think it's cool and interesting. So anyway, that's kind of like how I think like got into the the competitive side of this game. Is just you realize like this is so much fun.
Okay, for sure, for sure. And when it came to like the whole casting thing, like I thought it was really interesting, the whole point of like, you saw the casting, and if what I saw on the internet was right, of course, it said that you said somewhere along the line that you weren't really satisfied with how the casting was being done, or you were, it wasn't interesting, it wasn't, you couldn't pay attention to it too much, you kind of lose your interest to it. And I think that's super important to why you're here today, is because you're the complete opposite of an uninteresting caster. When you're on the mic, everyone wants to listen, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I remember I was listening to some of the early. This isn't CS:GO, right? Like in 1.6, obviously a lot of casting too. But the problem is the observing in 1.6 was so different. It was always going to be very hard to tell a story about some deeper aspect of the game because just finding the action in 1.6 is kind of hard. So most of the time you're going to be just looking at like how many headshots are we getting, like how many kills the guys get.
Hmm.
There was analysis obviously, and like I'm not going to try and like there was, but is very hard to do it the way that we ended up doing it in CS:GO, right? But yeah, when I started listening to the early CS:GO stuff, my thought was there are so many grenades being thrown and there are so many different things unfolding and nobody's talking about it. Like they're just talking about the headshots still. And I thought
Oh.
that's strange. Like, why, if somebody throws a smoke into a bomb site and then runs away, why are they doing that? Like, why, I kept thinking, like, they're going to say it at some point soon, right? And I actually messaged them on Twitter, like, the different people who are casting. I sent them, like, a DM. And I don't know why they would care about anybody messaging them, but I sent them messages and I said, like, hey, guys, you understand that the reason that we would call that a fake. They're trying to fake the bomb. They're trying to make a rotation on the other side, and then they're trying to go back to the other bomb site. Like we just say that, and this cast is going to be better instantly. And my friends, I kept saying this to my friends too on like TeamSpeak or whatever it was, and they would say like, why don't you just do it yourself? Like if you think you're so much better than this, like
Damn.
why just go and do it? I thought okay. So then I tried, and initially just weirdly, I think, try to just talk over the action, so not really do any like play by play anything. I just wanted to say, why are all these things happening? Like, what is like essentially draw out what I think is the real fun of the game, which is the tactical or like the chess element of the game, which I think to this day is still the thing that I am really really interested in. But obviously the problem is you can't just talk at a normal tone on top of like
Yeah.
insane clutches and ninja diffusers and all the rest of it. So eventually I realized okay, there has to be more to this. Like it can't just be like casually talking on top of a game. So but I didn't really intend to do that from the start.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, everybody starts somewhere. You're not always going to start something and be the best that you possibly can be at it. You got to
No.
start somewhere. That's the most important.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and when I was preparing for this interview, I came across a podcast that you did in which you've spoken about how your wife was working a miserable job. You started getting more interested in casting, and you ended up landing yourself a gig at NIP TV for Ninjas in Pajamas.
Yep.
How did you get your foot in the door with, casting for, now a pro team? And, what was it that made you decide like, okay, I got to take things to the next level here. Like I'm really passionate about this. This could work.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I knew that I wanted to keep casting like on day one. Like
Oh, okay.
yeah, like I just can't. It is hard to explain, but like, and I was in university finishing my like bachelor's in English or whatever. Not that I really knew what the plan was with that, to be honest, but I was doing something. And like I knew on day one, like I'm quitting. Like I'm never going back to university. Basically, like I'm out. So I can't explain that, but I just had this feeling like this is exactly how I want to spend my time, and I just love this. But then like my own channel, the podcast channel, didn't really last for that long, right? Because eventually an IP showed up, and I remember thinking at first, it's got to be a fake message. Like there's just no way that the NIP guys are interested in this, right?
Is this
But I kind
real?
of yeah, like it seemed fake. I was like, okay, let's have the conversation. They were like, yeah, why don't you come to Stockholm and we'll do like a show from a studio. We have a studio up here, and we'll actually bring the NIP team into the studio, and then they'll play like online Counter Strike. I think like Star Ladder matches or something.
Okay.
We'll play there, and you'll be in the corner casting, and they'll be playing, and it's gonna be it'll be super fun, right? And for me, I mean, obviously this is gonna be fucking exciting, but the scary thing is obviously like to me these are legends, right? Like
Oh
I
yeah.
grew up watching Forrest and Get Right play Counter Strike, so for me it's like it is an intimidating feeling, suddenly you're in a room and they're like, hey, like, who are you? It's like, I'm just the guy who's talking about the game, like,
Yeah, yeah.
super interesting, but they were really friendly and they were like super happy that, new stuff was happening, I guess. So yeah, that's how it all started. And I just thought like, this is a big opportunity for me to kind of move up in the world. And NIP were really the only organization at the beginning taking anything seriously, right? There weren't all the other orgs were still basically, it's like they didn't really have a lot going on. So yeah, it was slow in the beginning. It really was.
Yeah, and I just think it's so amazing. Like like every time I talk to, a commentator or a caster or something like that, just hearing all of these different aspects on like Counter-Strike and its pro scene, it amazes me so much because at the end of the day, it's just a video game, but it's been blown up in such an incredible way that teams have headquarters and they have studios and they go into rooms and do practice matches and do private
Yeah.
casting and kind of pretend like they're on the stage so that they're preparing themselves. Like it's such an amazing thing to me. It'll never ever fail to amuse me. It's so awesome.
No, I mean it is crazy. And it's again, it speaks to this thing that Counter Strike is, that somehow it just has a grip on people in a different way. Like it's very hard to explain. Like I think, and it's in a way, it's also more than just that. Like it also has become a cultural thing, right? Because we know that it's one of those things that people kind of know. If you ask like a football player or an actor or something, you're like, a lot of people are gonna say, well, yeah, I know Counter Strike, So like, just that alone is sort of a little bit crazy. So somehow it's transcended like even the game part of it in a funny way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
The cultural part of it is crazy to me because I'm in Toronto, Canada, but I went to Copenhagen last March. Actually, almost, yeah, just about a month. At the end of the month, it'll be a year since I was there for the Copenhagen major last year, and
Damn.
I went to the airport and the girl at the you know booth that was checking your passport or whatever, she was like, "Can you hand me your passport?" So I handed her the passport, and she's like, "Oh, from Canada." She's like, "What the heck are you doing here?" Like, "Oh, there's some like professional gaming tournament." Like I said, I felt kind of stupid saying it, but she's like, "Oh, Counter Strike." I was like,
Yeah.
"It's like, yeah, what, you know about it?" She's like, "Yeah, my kids are going." I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like that, it's not like that here. But then you go and you go across the ocean, you go to EU, and boom, that's how popular it is. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it is big. It definitely is. So, obviously a big part of the reason why it keeps picking up more and more people, right? Like, and it has the history. Again, we're doing a terrible job at telling the history, but the history of the game is so much deeper than
Oh
like
yeah.
it didn't. This didn't start in 2012, 13, right? Like for most people, it started a lot earlier than that too. So
Yeah, no, for sure. You quickly became and are still regarded as one of the most iconic commentators to ever touch a microphone in regards to, professional Counter-Strike. At what point did you kind of see the shift in your career, and when did you see that things were working out and, your stars were kind of aligning in that sense?
man, it's it's kind of weird because I think one of the bizarre things about being a caster, or at least for me, is that you are still almost always just working kind of like almost month to month, kind of thing. So, I mean, definitely, obviously, when you start to like in the beginning, we were getting paid next to nothing, and we were sort of trying to live off of Twitch ad revenue in the
Oh,
beginning.
wow.
Yeah, like it's not really a lot going on like in that sense. I mean, it just wasn't. And then eventually we started to go to like some DreamHack events, and obviously DreamHack actually have a budget for paying people, so that was cool. But we had no idea how much are we supposed to get paid. So then slowly, you negotiate over time. You try and find out like what's reasonable and how much can I get away with, and all the rest of it. And yeah, obviously that slowly starts to become like a sustainable thing. You start to see, oh man, if I do like one event a month, that's pretty good. If I could do two a month, it's actually really insane.
Mm-hmm.
And you just start to run down that road. So I mean, I would say obviously, I mean, I think the entire first year, so all of 13 was like essentially, I think all red numbers in terms of like me
Oh,
and my girlfriend, now wife's economy. Like, so she was carrying most of that year. Otherwise, like, and so from a business point of view, probably a terrible decision, right? But then obviously, I think going into 14, like things were starting to change around, and then it was becoming more of a like, okay, this is like sort of a real job. Like, we're not just
wow.
like talking about video games a lot, but it was a tough beginning. But again, like I said, I knew that like I knew I had to find a way to like to make. I did. There was no chance I could have done anything else really. So like I think said to her at the time, like, listen, if we end up having to move to Germany or Sweden, like near a studio, because those were the two places, like Stockholm or Cologne were like the two places where there were studios nearby that you could sort of go and cast in every day. And a lot of the industry basically said that's the future. Like you're not going to be doing this from home. You're going to be like living in your
Oh,
studio and going. That was like a really big consensus thing. And I said to her, listen, if that's what happens, like we have to do this, like, or I have to do this. Like, it's not to be dramatic, but like, I'm gonna hate my whole life if I don't like try this. I have to do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she essentially said like, "Oh, that's super rough, but like, you know, if it is like that, then you know, we'll let's talk about it, you know." So to try now, we didn't need to do that, and that was good. But
Ah,
but
perfect.
but yeah, like I think. But the truth is, I don't think there never really has been a moment where I've been like, oh, I've like made it, and that's it. Like I feel like for better or worse, like the truth is, like every month or every 3 months or something, you look at your list of invited events or whatever, and you say like, damn, is this gonna work or not? You know, like that's that's pretty much been like that for 12 years. Like that's and I've noticed something because when new casters come into the space and they ask me and they say like, oh well, how you must be, you must be doing fine. Like it's like it's not really like, I mean that doesn't really happen that way. And people are always disappointed. They're like, oh, I thought if I work past a certain threshold, then it's all good. It's like it's not. That's not how the industry works. Like it's pretty much month to month.
Wow. Like that's I don't know how you do it, man. That sounds like, not something everybody could do. And, to have a supportive girlfriend at the time, that was by your side and like, you had a dream and you stuck with your guns and wanted to do it. And she was
Yeah.
there on your side too. Like that's, that's important. That's huge. This video is sponsored by skinvault.gg, a trading site that makes upgrading your inventory easy. When you get to Skinvault, log in and add your trade link, and it's as easy as that. Simply select the skins from your inventory and choose what you want to trade them for. And of course, if you're looking to sell your skins instantly, Skinvault features a convenient cash out section. When you're going to cash out, make sure you use the code BIZZY to get a free $10 bonus as well as a 35% deposit bonus on top. And if you're lucky, you might find golden tickets which give you free balance. So head over to skinvault.gg by clicking the link in the description and get yourself a free $10 and a 35% deposit bonus all on me.
Yeah, I doubt. I feel like most partners would have said,
You'd
"No,
hope.
no, you're quitting your university degree to do this. Like that's stupid. That's stupid.
And real quick before I move to the next question, like I'm sure with, you said a lot of the numbers were red for a while and, things started to change later on and it was like this for a good set period of time. I'm sure this endures a lot of stress and stuff like that in your personal life. How does that kind of affect you? And, when you're going to commentate a game, like, do you have a way of blocking that completely out or is that in the back of your head? Like how do you control that? Because I'm sure it would not be an easy thing to do.
I mean, I think back then, I truly think I just wasn't even thinking about it. I think like the raw excitement of what we were doing and what we were building, and just kind of like just everything that was going on was, I think, overtook everything really. So I don't even think it was I mean, obviously it was a problem, but it was one of those things where I just kept saying it's gonna go bigger, it's gonna go bigger, it's gonna go, which was now seems like an easy prediction to make. But I bring this up in every interview because I wish I had documented this. I wish I could have like had recordings from back then. Everybody in the industry basically said FPS esports is kind of dead. Like it's gonna be MOBA and RTS games. Everyone agreed. Like they all said it's StarCraft and it's Dota and League basically. And that's it. Like nobody cares about like the FPS stuff anymore. Like Quake is, on its last legs. Counter-Strike 1.6 is over. And this Go stuff is like, who knows who knows will go anywhere. Like a lot of people were like super bitter about, there was like a three-way fracturing between Go, Source, and 1.6, right? People are playing all three at the same time, basically, or in different communities, right? And so it wasn't. It seems obvious now because we know the history, but back then that wasn't obvious at all. But I had this insanely strong feeling that this will blow up. Like I feel like I could see it, and I kept telling people like, you guys are wrong, and everyone's like, no, but it's not a MOBA game, and that's the only thing that people care about. And it's like, we'll see. So
Wow.
I think I just ignored a lot of that stuff for better or worse, and just thought, no, let's just we'll power on. It's gonna work. And it did. So that was good.
Amazing. And yeah, like you said, the whole prediction of CS, like you can make the prediction now looking back on it because obviously we're in the future. We know what it's been like.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody expected Counter-Strike to blow up the way it did, especially when skins hit and stuff like that. Like that just propelled this game to just the biggest audience
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. That made a huge difference. No question.
So I think it's pretty fair to say, and I'm sure you probably had an idea this is coming up, but the Inhuman reaction soundbite has I think it's pretty fair to say has been the most iconic and most well-known clip of your casting career when Hiko hit that ridiculous 180 headshot on lower mid doors on Dust 2.
Yeah.
Um, but besides that, since your debut in casting for Counter-Strike in 2013, what would you say is some other more of your most standout moments in the casting booth? If you could pick some from the top of your head, if you have any.
Yeah. It's always really, really hard to say. I mean, one other thing that's always tricky is you don't always necessarily remember like a lot of the stuff. I think so. I had this conversation the other day. I think there's one moment where Neo clutches on overpass on the A bomb site. That worked really, really well. And at the end of going to the grand final, I can't remember what the event was now. But yeah, that was like the clutch to basically save the game for them. That one was, I think, was really fun. I think obviously there's a Freiburg one on Cobblestone where like Freiburg gets a couple of kills and then they end up winning to time because Exist is running away, like really early on. So I think those are some of the big moments. And then I would say for me, like in terms of games casted, like I still think the Astralis victory over Virtus Pro in Atlanta to win the major was super crazy. Like that last map on Train was just absolutely insane, and that's gone a really long way in my head. So yeah, it's always really hard. I don't also go back and like listen to a lot of the stuff that I do myself. Like it's
Okay.
it's usually it's the stuff that sort of comes up in videos or something where I'm like, okay, people seem to like that. That was good, but it's hard to know. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's been 12 years, right? So
Yeah, a lot of
been some
games casted in that time, I imagine.
yeah.
And another really cool thing I wanted to touch on as well is back in 2015, you won the Golden Joystick Award for being Esports Icon of the Year, which is an incredible achievement. Did you ever expect to win an award in your career as being a caster, like especially one that's just, it's huge, it's amazing. Did you ever expect something like this?
No, and I always have this like weird relationship with awards in general because it's I mean obviously a lot of this job in general is sort of a popularity contest and there's no way to avoid that, but I just kind of I don't know, I want to say I'm not a part of it, but I would say it's not something that comes very naturally to me, and I just kind of I don't have a lot of energy for it. So as a result, most of the time when this award stuff is happening, I'm like, oh, like do I really want to interact with it? I feel like whenever there are different award shows, whenever they write me and they say, hey, like do you want to show up? And if you show up, there's always a chance that you might win or blah blah. No, I just never answer those emails. I don't know. I mean, it is cool. I think my life would have been no different without it. Like it sounds stupid, but like yeah, I feel like awards are dumb in general. Like maybe that's a bad opinion, but I kind of feel like that.
No, I hear what you mean, but like at the end of the day, from the outsider looking in, like it is well deserved. A guy such as yourself deserves an award. It deserves many awards, let alone just one. But it to me, and I kind of get where you're coming from because it is like, oh look at me, I got a trophy, I'm cool. I guess is how it could look to some people. But at the end of the day, like you grinded and you went through everything you went through to get that, and you got
Yeah,
it. So the
yeah. I
acknowledgement is
mean,
definitely awesome.
yeah. I mean, and I'm proud of that part, right? Like I'm proud of how much work we did. I think people again like it's hard to quantify, but like Samuel and I at the beginning were casting like 6 to 8 hours of European Counter Strike, and then we stayed up to cast like another 6 to 8 hours of NA Counter Strike. So we would literally cast all the Counter Strike there was. There were in the beginning there were no games that we weren't casting. Like it's
Wow.
not like there were some other league somewhere or some other games on HLTV that we weren't covering. We did all of them, and I think that's really cool and really interesting, right? But I think like it's also I'm gonna be honest. The scary thing about awards in general, and in general, I think when people give too much praise, is that it's such an invitation to say, "Oh, that's it. Like I don't have like I don't have to do any more work or whatever." Like there's that feeling in me where I'm like, "Oh, like." The problem is you pretty much have to prove yourself all the time. So like,
Hmm.
like if you just sit back and relax and say, well, that's it, like job done. The space moves forward really quickly. You're not going to be around very long, So, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of my fear too. Is like the temptation to say, "Oh, that's it," I've done it. Is kind of scary. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, complicated topic.
Okay, I got you. I got you. And speaking of like things are always moving forward and things are kind of always changing in a sense too. When we speak about the players, like there's been a lot of legendary players coming from 1.6, a lot in CS:GO, and now you see
Yeah,
CS2, and there's even more people that are showing up that there's people that have been playing since 1.6 in CS:GO, and these
yeah.
new people just it feels like they just appear and they're just dominating, breaking records, getting MVPs and all this stuff. And CS as a whole, as a game, has evolved so many times, but the player base, like in the professional scene as well, has always also done the same thing. So when you personally look over all of the years of casting and just like in general being involved with Counter Strike, like what are your thoughts on how the pro players continue to raise the bar and raise that skill ceiling of like the game itself and the competitive aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean it's really funny to look back on older games now because they're just like it sort of does look like you're watching almost like a parody. You think like this can't be real. Like why are they doing this? Like why are they playing the angles like that? Why are they using the utility in this way? Like I don't understand. Do they not know anything about what's? But obviously, the game evolves and every year it evolves quicker. It seems. But I mean that's so yeah. The game itself is evolving tactically and from like what's even possible mechanically in some sense, and that's one kind of evolution. But then the fun part is that every once in a while you get these breakthrough players that just it doesn't really matter how much you study, you couldn't be that person. Like you get another donk or another. It's rare, right? It's really rare that
Mm-hmm.
you get somebody who can change the system. And I would say even in that group of players I would say there's like a hierarchy of people. Like I still don't think we haven't ever seen another simple. Like in my brain, there's still only really simple who can occupy that space now. Maybe that's controversial, but I think it's there's something about that. So yeah, I think that's another way in which the game rewards people who stick around and watch it for a long time. Is that yeah, you get to see like the generational talents who come up. They say this might be like a 1 in a 10 year kind of guy
Yeah.
who's able to do this, and that's really cool to be there when those people make it onto the scene. You say, okay, let's see, like how far does it go? Is he really? Because you could make an argument to say, well, Don could be like another symbol. Yeah, maybe in the future, right? But not in 1 or 2 years, right? It's gonna have
No,
to be a
yeah.
little bit longer than that. But I'm here for like the Donk story. I mean, 100%, right? That's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and as a dude who just likes to watch professional Counter Strike, to me it just blows my mind how this kid goes on the server and does whatever he wants and gets away with bloody murder, and
Yeah.
not many people can figure him out. And to me, it's just crazy. Again, this is a noob take probably, but how has no one really figured him out yet? Yes, he's had everybody has their bad matches, but for the vast majority of the matches he plays, he dominates, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a combination of a bunch of different factors, right? Like he is obviously mechanically like almost uniquely gifted. So there's something to this, and then there's some kind of game intuition. So like if you could sort of say, how many points out of 100 would you give Duncan mechanics and game intuition and the right kind of mindset to not be scared when he's up against, really famous other players that in theory he could crumble just under the pressure, right? And it feels like in all those categories, you just have to give him like, he's going to be in like the 99th percentile on all these things. And you put it all together and it just makes for a player that's very, very, very hard to take down. And he also plays a style that's really hard to punish. Like it just is. He, in spite of like his impact on the game, if you look at a lot of the game, he's actually a very careful player. Like there's not a, you're not, we're not talking about somebody who is jumping through smokes and shooting people in the head, and because that style can be punished at one point, right? But
Hmm.
Donks is like. It's much more measured and much more careful, and that makes it very, very hard to stop. But I mean, we've also seen games and whole tournaments now where that whole system doesn't really work the same, and he does this. So I mean, that's why I've always tried to be careful about matching one person's year of versus somebody's entire career, like a Nico or or a Simple,
For
because
sure.
doing something really well for like a year is way different from doing something really well over the span of like a decade. They're not even close to the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So with a job such as yours, there's a lot of commitment involved in terms of, constantly traveling around the world, being away from your family, being away from home, all that sort of thing. what would you say are some of the pros and cons about, having a job like this? And over the years of doing this repeatedly and over and over and over, how did you kind of find the balance to make your life and work life manageable?
I mean, the pros is that it's super fun. Like, obviously, I like traveling in general, and I like being in airports. I don't necessarily like being on planes, but who does? But I think it's so if you enjoy traveling around, then it's fun. And I enjoy the people that I work with, and I like the events and everything else. Like that side of it is, I think, is the big plus and the big bonus. And it's more than enjoy. Like when I'm done doing a cast that I feel like it's gone really well and the game was fun and everybody was like into it and the crowd was loving it. Like I walk off the stage and it's a kind of energy that I don't really get almost anywhere else in my life. So like it's very hard for me to not want to come back and pursue that again and again. It's like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm alive in a different kind of way. So that's probably the really really big upside. Some of the big downsides I would say have to do with, like you said, obviously trying to, for most people, I think they realize that keeping a relationship together while you travel around this much is really hard. Like it just is.
Mhm.
Something that we learned I don't know, it was early on, probably took us a while, but eventually we realized that if we don't call each other to have some small talk along the way, it's actually really hard to pick up small talking when you're back home again. So,
Like
so, so, so
awkward
obviously,
almost?
yeah, or like you realize that, like, let's say I've been on the road for like, like this could happen, right? Like it was like almost 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And then you come back and let's say, I don't know, like the neighbor's dog died and some other things happen and like just really sort of trivial things in many ways that have nothing to really do with our lives, so to speak. But it's like, it's the talk around the neighborhood or something.
Hmm.
If you don't kind of know that these things are going on, then when you come back home, it's like you have to go back and remember, like you have to sort of backtrack and say, well, what actually happened in the 3 weeks here? And that's really awkward and it feels really odd. And then, there's just not, there's a lot of casual stuff that you don't notice normally in a day that suddenly like you can't pick up on. Like, so if my wife would throw something out there and say like, oh yeah, like, these guys are thinking about selling their house or something. It's like, I'm like, what? Like there might be all these different things that are happening that we have no context for that conversation because we didn't talk about it when I was away.
I
So I
gotcha.
think
Okay.
at some point we made sort of an effort to try to remember, because obviously we would update each other on big things that might be happening, and that's fine. But I think doing the little things could be important too. But that is a big challenge for it really is. And a lot of people in the space end up sort of quitting because for this reason, because they just realize like there's no, it's hard to make happen, right? And then I mean the other big issue really I think is the lack of predictability, like never knowing in the future if you are available for anything. Like if we have
Yeah.
a birthday, a family birthday, or anything like that, like I can say yes, but at the end of the day, if somebody shows up and says, "Hey, we need you for a tournament here or here or here," there's like a 99% chance I'm gonna find a way to try and do it.
Yeah.
And you really have to. So that part is probably I think the worst part of it, where like you simultaneously don't know and you're sort of on call the whole time to be ready to do something. So that's very stressful, and I don't really know. Like, I mean, there is no good way to deal with that. Like, it just unfortunately is one of the side effects of the industry right now, at least.
Yeah, it's one of those things I mean, I'm sure not even at first. I'm sure, like, no matter how long you do it, I'm sure it's just incredibly uncomfortable. Maybe sits with you a certain way, like, oh, this feels wrong or something. But it's just about finding that way of making it work, and then once you have that, you're good to go. And it sounds like you have a really supportive wife. I mean, back from the
Yep.
beginning, she was by your side. Till right now, she's by your side. Like you got yourself a good system going. It sounds like, and that's really amazing.
Yeah, like I would definitely say so. And yeah, like, I would say it's probably for most people. I think it actually that feeling becomes worse over time, right? Like, because in the beginning you can ignore it a little bit more, but like over time, the lack of knowing anything about the future, I think it accumulates for most people over time. And I've known plenty of people who've ended up quitting for that reason, who've said like, I don't want to do this anymore
Oh
because
wow.
I need to be able to tell somebody if I'm coming to their birthday or if I'm going to their wedding or if I can plan like a date night a month from now or like anything like, and most of the time people can't. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think big source of a lot of stress in the industry. But what can we do?
Yeah, for sure, man. Just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So before we end things, I wanted to kind of ask you another question about, I saw there was a couple forums on February 11th on HLTV discussions. There was something going on about you having some plans. You said that you wanted to come back into the scene and get to casting again. And on Reddit as well, there was another, conversation that you were commenting on there. And it might have drawn a bit of confusion to some people. You were kind of talking a little bit about how you got a weird vibe from, tournament organizers and kind of felt like they were shutting you down. And I'm not saying that's what they were doing. That just, what it seemed like anyway. So obviously I want to give you a moment to kind of clarify this. Is this kind of like you weren't sure if it was a bad timing situation every time you'd reach out to them and they'd say, hey, sorry, we're fully booked here? Like, I just wanted to give you a minute to kind of clear the air because a lot of people were really wondering about what was going on here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the big issues, not just for me, but I think for a whole long list of people, is that a lot of the times when you contact a tournament organizer, they're not really going to say either yes or no. They're just going to sort of say, well, you're on the list of people that we might talk to. Maybe. And that's I actually think that's worse. I've tried to tell people for many years now that having a firm no from somebody is actually really helpful. It's very helpful if
For
somebody
sure.
says, "Hey, you're not doing this event that's like 4 months from now," because then I could do all kinds of other things, right? Like I could contact, potential sponsors that might be at the event and say, "Hey, how about I come to the event anyway, but I'll be, in your sponsor booth doing different things,"
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
or I or I could plan a vacation, or what I could do, like any number of other things, right? But not knowing is really is hard to deal with. So that's so I like I said, I don't really know, other than at some point I went from sort of being, I feel like having more of like a lot more of like a clear dialogue with a lot of these different companies, and then at some point I was like, oh, I can't explain why, but it's very obvious that that clear dialogue just doesn't really exist anymore, and I don't really know why. And I try to find out, like I try to ask a bunch. I obviously know people in, I don't know, every corner of the industry, so I try to go to people and say, hey, like what's what's the vibe here? And everybody sort of came back and said, but everyone seems to still like you, and like there's nothing, like there's nothing that we can tell for what's going on. Which is also why, like, I think it's possible that it is just kind of like a, I don't know, like a a random roll of the dice, and it, like, you just gotta end up in a position where suddenly you're not getting hired for a couple of things here or there, or whatever. Because like I said, everyone I sort of talked to seemed to say, oh yeah, like we still obviously we still want to be working with Anders and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's super confusing, but obviously it's very tricky because, again, not knowing is very hard to change anything or do anything about it. Like you just you just sort of don't know.
Hmm.
And that's unfortunate, and obviously super super stressful, right? Like if your economy and your life in some sense really depends on this source of income, just having no idea what's going on from, like, from almost feels like sort of 1 month to the next is kind of crazy. But again, like, I mean, obviously, that's on the negative side of it. On the positive side of it, I would say it did also make me kind of like put a lot more effort, which I've been doing over the last, like, 2 or 3 months now or something, into really, really, really trying to sort of summon up some other stability in my life, so that I'm not just relying on this for for forever. Like, I
Hmm.
still want to be doing casting, and if I had the chance, I would probably almost only do casting, and maybe some other content projects along the way. But, like, unfortunately, is a very very unsustainable way to go about things. And if, I think I feel like a sense of responsibility to my family as well. I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for a really long time. Like, I think it's probably time that they also get a sense of, that, again, there is some more predictable stuff. Like, we can plan a vacation and go somewhere,
Sure.
and it's not just like a constant, who knows, So yeah, that's one of the big things I want to accomplish this year, is basically trying to find a way to sort of broaden my, my the base of my life a little bit more.
For sure. And I gotta say too, like, I just think it's weird that, like the situation for people to be saying like, you know, yeah, like we have no problems with you. We like you and you're great at what you do and it's a pleasure working with you. It'd be like imagine not seeing or hearing Launders for, you know, so long. It'd be like, what the hell, where is he? And to me it's the same thing with you because you're just
Yeah.
such a household name in the casting scene and it's just like again, from a noob take, the outsider looking in, it seems like you're kind of being blackballed, and I think that's incredibly wrong, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I really wish I had like a better answer, right? Because the truth is like it, what's also uncomfortable for me is that I've noticed a lot of people start saying, well, there's got to be a reason. Like, he must have sort of done something, right? Like maybe he's super unpleasant to work with, or maybe he's done like some unethical thing that we don't know about, no one's talking about. So like, I almost at one point was like, man, I'm gonna have to I almost have to make a statement just to say, hey guys, like I'm not, I'm not crazy, like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
nothing weird's going on here, unfortunately. But the problem is making that statement. People are gonna say, okay, so then what is the reason? I'm like, I don't know. Like, if I knew, I would say something, right? Like if I had some really, some if someone had given me some feedback and said, yeah, unfortunately, we feel like this is going on, or there's no, this stuff isn't working out for us, or you need to do more of this and less of this, and if there was more feedback, then that would be totally reasonable and fair, right? Or like I said, if the feedback literally was, hey, we just don't need you anymore, and you should go and find somewhere else to be. Like that'd be very harsh for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
but it
For
would
sure.
still be better, right? Like it still would be a better situation to be in.
Give you an
So yeah,
idea at least, right now you're sitting here wondering that.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like there are some things that are looking up a little bit. Like I've got some interesting conversations going on right now, so that's good.
Okay.
And I'm happy about that. So it's not as crazy as it was, whatever, like, towards the middle of December and start of this year. So that's good news. But at the end of the day, still, it's yeah. I mean, it just highlights the fact that relying on casting alone and kind of like doing that full time and having nothing sort of really else to rely on is kind of rough. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
really hoping that I can find some different organizations or different content or different sort of things that I can throw some time into to sort of like use my. I also feel like I've got a lot of experience and expertise in this space, and it also
Hell
feels a
yeah.
bit dumb to just be sitting around waiting and saying like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. But yeah, like it's been pretty. It's definitely been one of the craziest. Not one of. I think it's been the craziest start to like any year I've had in like a really long time in terms of that side of it. So yeah. But I mean, it's also true, unfortunately, that the industry is just in a kind of a weird state. Like we've got the VRS stuff that's rolling in that's making everyone kind of unsure about what on earth is even going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then esports in general is like in this, especially Counter Strike esports in this state where like there's like a bit of a shrinkage. I mean, obviously in 25 that's supposed to be different, but then a lot of those things got wiped out by VRS rules that people didn't understand or didn't care about or didn't follow properly or whatever it was that was going on, right? So there's been a lot of other circumstances that has nothing to do with me at all. That's just like
Mm-hmm.
a industry wide kind of thing. And
Sure.
like I said, I'm not the only person who's in this position, unfortunately, right? Like you can I think you can double my story like 10 times and find like 10 other people who have a similar story.
Wow.
And that's kind of crazy to me. Like unfortunately, I feel like yeah, it's probably not a good place for the industry to be. And again, like if people need to move on and they can't find any work here anymore, then I think telling people that would be probably more reasonable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I can't fix it. All I can do is try to, again, like try to apply myself and do a good job and make good content and show people that, hey, working with me still is fun and I can do, I can do some cool shit. So that's my goal anyway, to try and sort of say I'm gonna basically rely on that. What my hope is that if I sort of share my passion for Counter Strike with a lot of people, then that will lead somewhere good. That's what it did in the beginning, and hopefully it'll still work.
No, 100%, 100%. And it sounds like a very frustrating situation, but you seem like, you're handling it pretty well and you're in a good mindset about it. So that's number one. Like, you're already
Yeah.
winning the battle if you have that under your belt. So, I just hope that things end up panning out for you in a better way. Hopefully within Counter-Strike, but in general with whatever it may be that, makes your life easier at the end of the day and gives you a sense of, predictability, as you were saying too. So wish you the best of luck on that journey, regardless of what happens, whatever works best for you. But that was the last question I had for you, dude. Thank you so much for your time. It was an incredible honor having you on and telling your story and, sharing your experience with the industry and whatnot. Um, for the end of the episode, I usually like to pass, the spotlight over to the guest. And you know, if there's anything you'd like to share with the listeners, if there's a message or anything at all that you'd like to say before we sign out, this is the time to do it.
Damn. Yeah, that's it's a big, well, I guess first of all, thank you for sitting down with me as well. I appreciate the time. Always, I think fun to chat and just try to do something new and different. So I appreciate that opportunity. And in terms of some sort of message or something like that, yeah, I mean, I guess what I will say is that on the back end of a lot of this stuff, like I got a ton of messages from people who in general who sort of are very supportive and I appreciate that obviously, and I'm gonna work hard, I think, to try and make sure that I can live up to people's trust in me as someone who can do a good job, right? So that's important to me. And apart from that, I mean, I think my dream still is that we're all going to be playing and watching Counter-Strike 10, 20, 30, 50 years into the future. So I'd say if you believe in the longevity of Counter-Strike, then get involved somehow. Like if you've got a voice for it, if you care about it, if you want to be doing streaming or content creation, or if you want to be an analyst or a caster or some other thing, like for me, like this has been my view for a really long time, right? Like Counter-Strike is a long-term thing. It's not just about what happens this year or the next year. Like we're building something way bigger, and there's a lot of people involved in it, and there are a lot of big problems that we can solve, and I really think we need like as many people as we can get to who are good and who are passionate about the game. So like I think that yeah, if you're out there somewhere and you're sort of thinking about that, then I'd say like think about the next 10 years and what Counter-Strike will be then, because I don't think it's going anywhere.
Alrighty, guys, that wraps things up, man. Incredible getting to hear this man speak one-on-one and just hear more about him and his journey and his career so far. Rather unfortunate to not see him as much these days, and the situation seems a little bit iffy there with his return and stuff, which I really hope that we see one day, and I hope that you guys feel the same way, because he's the fucking GOAT. He's the GOAT. So best of luck to Anders in the future. I hope you get to make it back on the big screen, and we need to hear that voice over some pro games, man. It's not the same without you. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done those already. It helps me out a ton, and it doesn't cost you a thing. So yeah, thank you to everybody that's checked this out. I appreciate you guys clicking on my podcast and showing some love, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll catch you guys next Friday as we upload every single Friday. Much love. Stay safe. Till next time, y'all.